I didn't call for help that night. My son did. The kitchen light flickered above me, buzzing like it was tired of trying, and I remember thinking it sounded exactly how I felt. Exhausted, worn thin, the kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. My hands trembled against the edge of the counter as I tried to steady my breathing, but it came out shallow, uneven, like my body had forgotten the rhythm. The coffee I'd poured 10 minutes ago sat untouched, gone cold, just like everything else in this apartment that never quite held warmth. Mom. Noah's voice was small, too small for a room that felt this heavy. I turned my head, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I'm okay, baby. The lie tasted dry. He stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, bare feet on the cracked tile, his little hands clutching that old phone I'd given him to play games on. It was outdated, barely worked, but it kept him busy while I worked double shifts and tried to pretend everything was under control. He watched me the way children do when they know something's wrong but don't have the words to ask. I tried to straighten up, to act normal, but the room tilted slightly, like the ground beneath me had shifted just enough to remind me I wasn't as strong as I kept pretending to be. I gripped the counter harder. Go sit on the couch, okay? I said softly. I'll be there in a minute. He didn't move. Not right away. Just stared at me with those wide, searching eyes that saw too much. Then slowly, he nodded and padded back into the living room. I heard the faint sound of cartoons turning on, bright and cheerful, and completely disconnected from the quiet tension wrapping around me like a second skin. I exhaled, closing my eyes for a second too long. Just a second. That's all it took for my knees to weaken, for my balance to slip, for the world to blur at the edges. I caught myself before I fell, barely. My fingers tightened, knuckles pale against the cheap laminate. Not now, I whispered. Please, not now. I didn't know how long I stayed like that, suspended between holding on and letting go, but when I finally opened my eyes, the apartment felt quieter. Too quiet. Noah, I called out, my voice thin. No answer. A flicker of panic cut through the fog in my head. I pushed myself upright and stepped into the living room. He was sitting cross-legged on the couch, completely focused, tongue slightly sticking out in concentration as he tapped at the phone screen. What are you doing? I asked, softer this time. He looked up at me, proud. I sent your picture, Mom. My stomach dropped. You what? You looked sick, he said simply. So I sent it to the man. The man. My heart skipped, then pounded. What man, Noah? He turned the phone toward me, showing a message thread I didn't recognize. Just one contact. No name. Only a single letter. A. And above it a photo of me. Pale. Weak. Caught in a moment I didn't even remember. My breath caught. Why would you do that? I asked, barely above a whisper. He shrugged, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Because he helps people. The room went still. Completely still. Like even the air had paused to listen. And somewhere deep in my chest, something shifted. Not fear. Not yet. Just a feeling. The kind you get right before everything changes. The phone felt heavier in my hand than it should have, like it carried more than just a cheap plastic shell and a cracked screen. My pulse thudded in my ears as I stared at that single letter on the contact line. A. No name. No history. Just a message thread that should not exist. Noah, I said carefully, keeping my voice steady even though something inside me had started to tighten. Where did you find this number? He shrugged again, swinging his small legs over the edge of the couch. It was already there. Already there. The words echoed louder than they should have. I did not remember saving any contact like that. I did not remember anything that explained it. My thumb hovered over the screen, uncertain, like touching it might trigger something I could not take back. Did he answer? I asked. Noah nodded, his expression brightening just a little. He read it. A chill slid down my spine, slow and deliberate. How do you know? Because it says seen. Of course it did. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. Seen. That meant someone had opened it. Someone had looked at that picture. Looked at me. A stranger. Or maybe not a stranger at all. The thought unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I forced a breath in, then out. Okay, I said quietly. It is probably nothing. Sometimes phones just... I trailed off because even I did not believe that. Phones did not just send messages to unknown people who immediately read them. Phones did not just connect you to someone who made your chest feel tight without even being in the room. Noah had already turned back to his cartoon, the moment forgotten as easily as it had come. That was the thing about children. They moved on. They trusted the world to make sense. I wished I still could. I set the phone down on the coffee table like it might burn me if I held it any longer. The apartment felt smaller now, quieter in a different way, not peaceful, waiting. I rubbed my arms, suddenly aware of how cold the room had become. The heater clicked somewhere in the wall, struggling like everything else in this place. I should have deleted the message. That was the logical thing to do. End it. Pretend it never happened. But my feet did not move. My hands stayed still, because something in me kept whispering the same thought over and over again. He saw you. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time stretched in that strange way it does when you are anticipating something you cannot name. I tried to distract myself, wiping down the counter, straightening things that did not need straightening, anything to avoid looking at the phone again. It did not work. Every small sound made my head turn. Every passing car outside made my heart pick up speed. Then it happened. A knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just 3 steady taps against the door. My entire body went still. Noah did not even look up from the television. "Mom, someone is here," he said casually, like this was normal. Like people knocked on our door all the time. They did not. Not like this. Not at this hour. I stared at the door, my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. Another knock. Same rhythm. Controlled. Patient. Whoever it was not guessing. They knew exactly where they were. And somehow, deep down, before I even took a step toward that door, I already knew. This was not a mistake. I stood there for a second too long, staring at the door like it might disappear if I did not move. It did not. The silence stretched, thick and pressing, until Noah's voice cut through it again. "Are you going to get it?" he asked, not even turning away from the television. I forced my legs forward, each step slower than it should have been, like I was walking into something I could not see but already felt. My hand hovered over the handle, my breath shallow, uneven. "Do not open it," a small voice in my head whispered. But another voice, quieter and heavier, said it was already too late for that. I turned the knob. The door opened just a few inches at first, enough to see a shadow, a shape, a presence that filled the hallway in a way that did not belong to this building. Then I opened it wider, and everything shifted. He stood there like he did not belong to the same world as the peeling paint and flickering lights around us. Tall, composed, dressed in a dark suit that looked untouched by the cold or the city or anything at all. His posture was still, controlled, like every movement had already been decided before it happened. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Calm, focused, the kind of gaze that did not wander. It found you and stayed. I forgot how to speak. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The hallway behind him was quiet, but I could feel it, that subtle shift in the air, like there were more people somewhere just out of sight, waiting without needing to be seen. "Emily Carter," he said finally, his voice low and even, not a question. A statement. My name sounded different coming from him. He should not have known it. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely holding steady. He did not answer right away. His eyes moved, just slightly, past me, into the apartment, toward the living room, toward Noah, then back to me. "You received a message," he said, not asking, confirming. My stomach tightened. "That was a mistake," I said quickly. My son did not know what he was doing. "It will not happen again." I reached for the door, instinctively wanting to close it, to create distance, to undo whatever had started. His hand lifted, not touching the door, not blocking it, just there. And somehow I stopped. Not because he forced me, because something in me understood he did not need to. He knew exactly what he was doing, he said quietly. My chest rose and fell too fast. "He is 4, I replied. "He does not understand." "No," the man said, his gaze steady, unwavering. He understood enough. The words settled between us, heavy in a way I could not explain. Behind me, I heard small footsteps. "Mom." Noah appeared at my side, peeking around me with curiosity that had not yet learned fear. The moment the man's eyes found him, something changed. Subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it. The sharp edge in his expression softened, just slightly, like a memory had brushed against him and left a mark. "You are the one who sent the picture," he said, his voice different now. Still controlled, but quieter. Noah nodded without hesitation. "She is sick," he said simply. "So I told you." Silence followed. Not empty. Full. The man looked at him for a long second, then exhaled slowly, like he had just made a decision that could not be undone. When he spoke again, his voice returned to that calm certainty that made everything else feel smaller. "I am here now," he said. And for the first time since the knock on the door, I felt it clearly. Not just fear, not just confusion, something else, something deeper. Like the moment right before a storm breaks, when the air changes and you realize there is no going back to how it was before. "No," I said before I even realized I was speaking. The word came out sharper than I intended, thin but desperate, like it was trying to hold back something much bigger than me. "You cannot just show up here like this." My hand tightened on the edge of the door, my body instinctively shifting in front of Noah, placing myself between him and the man without thinking. It was automatic. Protective. Useless, maybe, but it was all I had. He did not move, did not step forward, did not step back. He simply stood there, watching me with that same steady gaze, like he was measuring something I could not see. "I already did," he said quietly. The simplicity of it made my chest tighten. There was no arrogance in his voice, no anger, just certainty. And somehow, that was worse. "We do not need help," I added quickly, even though my voice wavered at the edges. "We are fine." The lie hung in the air between us, fragile and obvious. His eyes flicked briefly to my hands, to the way they trembled against the door, then to the faint discoloration beneath my eyes, the shallow rise and fall of my chest. He noticed everything. I could tell. "No," he said again, softer this time. "You are not." The words landed harder than they should have. Not loud, not forceful, but precise. Like he had already decided what was true, and there was no point pretending otherwise. I felt my breath catch. "You do not know anything about us," I replied, trying to hold on to something that still belonged to me. "You saw one picture." "I saw enough," he said. Silence stretched again, heavy and unavoidable. Behind me, Noah tugged gently at my sleeve. "Mom, can he come in?" he asked, his voice small but curious, completely unaware of the weight pressing down on the moment. I shook my head slightly, still staring at the man in front of me. "Noah, go sit down." But he did not move. Instead, he looked past me, straight at the man, with that same open trust children give without question. "You help people," Noah said. It was not a question. The man's expression shifted again, just barely, like something in those words reached a place he kept carefully controlled. He crouched down slowly, bringing himself closer to Noah's height, his movements deliberate, non-threatening, like he understood exactly how to approach without causing fear. "Sometimes," he said. His voice was quieter now, stripped of its edge. "And you asked for help." Noah nodded, satisfied, like that was all the confirmation he needed. I watched the exchange, something inside me tightening and loosening at the same time. This did not make sense. None of it did. People like him did not just appear because a child sent a message. They did not stand in hallways of broken buildings and speak gently to strangers. They did not care. "Why?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. "Why are you here?" He stood again, slowly, his full presence filling the doorway once more. His eyes met mine, steady and unreadable. "Because someone needed me," he said. My heart stuttered. "And when that happens, I show up." The words echoed in the small space, settling into the walls, into the silence, into me. I should have closed the door. I should have said no again. But my hand did not move. My body did not move. Because somewhere deep down, beneath the fear and confusion and instinct to push him away, there was something else. A quiet, dangerous realization. He was not asking to come in. He was giving me the chance to let him. I do not remember making the decision to step aside. One second, I was holding the door like it was the only thing keeping my life from splitting in half, and the next, I was no longer blocking the entrance. It was subtle, a shift, a surrender I did not say out loud. He noticed. Of course he did. His gaze held mine for a fraction longer, like he was confirming something. Then he stepped forward. No hesitation, no wasted movement. The air changed the moment he crossed the threshold. It was not dramatic, not loud, just different. Like the room had adjusted itself around him without asking permission. I felt it in my chest. Tight. Unfamiliar. "Shoes," I said automatically, the word slipping out before I could stop it. It was ridiculous. Of all the things to say in that moment. But it was the only normal rule I had left. For a second, I thought he might ignore me. Then, without a word, he stepped back slightly and removed his shoes, placing them neatly by the door like he had done it 100 times before. The gesture caught me off guard. It was small, but it mattered. Noah smiled like this confirmed everything he already believed. See, he whispered to me, tugging my sleeve. He is nice. Nice. I almost laughed. But nothing about this man felt simple enough to fit that word. He moved into the living room slowly, his eyes scanning the space, not in judgment, but in assessment. The worn couch, the cracked coffee table, the thin blanket folded too carefully over the armrest. Every detail. He took it in like it meant something, like it told him a story. You live here alone, he said, not asking. Yes, I replied, my voice quieter now, unsure why I felt the need to answer honestly. With him, his gaze shifted to Noah again, softer, then back to me. No family nearby. I hesitated, then shook my head. No. He nodded once, like he had expected that answer. Of course he had. He seemed like the kind of man who already knew things before he asked. Sit, he said, gesturing lightly toward the couch. It was not a command, but it was not a suggestion either. Something in between. Something that made my body respond before my mind caught up. I sat. Slowly. He remained standing for a moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. Not rushed. Not frantic. Calm. Controlled. I am calling a doctor, he said. My head snapped up. No, the word came faster this time. Stronger. We cannot afford that. His eyes lifted to meet mine, steady and unshaken. That is not your concern. It is my concern. I insisted, my voice tightening. Everything here is my concern. A pause. Just long enough to feel it. Then he spoke again, quieter. Not anymore. The words landed differently this time. Not heavy. Not threatening. Just final. I felt something shift in my chest again, something I could not name. Fear, maybe. Or something that looked like it. You cannot just take over my life, I said, softer now, but no less certain. He studied me for a moment. Really studied me. Like he was trying to understand where the line was, where I would break, where I would not. Then he gave the smallest nod. I am not taking it, he said. I am keeping it from falling apart. Silence filled the space between us. Noah climbed up beside me, leaning against my arm like he always did, grounding me in something real. Something mine. The man watched us for a second, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Then he looked back at his phone, already dialing. And for the first time, I realized something that made my breath catch. He had not asked for permission. He had given me the illusion of it. The call connected faster than I expected, like the person on the other end had been waiting. He did not introduce himself. He did not explain. He simply spoke, low and precise, giving an address that was mine and instructions that were not meant to be questioned. I watched him as he talked, the way his tone never changed, the way his words carried weight without effort. This was not someone who asked for things. This was someone who decided them. When he ended the call, he slipped the phone back into his jacket like nothing unusual had just happened. Like doctors showing up to a place like this in the middle of the night was normal for him. It was not normal for me. They are coming? I asked, my voice quieter now, not because I wanted it to be, but because something about him made loud emotions feel out of place. Yes, he said simply. No hesitation. No doubt. I tightened my hold on Noah without realizing it, my fingers curling gently around his shoulder. You cannot do that, I said, even though I already knew he could. You do not even know what is wrong with me. His gaze shifted to me again, steady as ever. I know enough, he replied, and the rest will be determined. Determined. Not discovered. Not discussed. Determined. The word lingered, heavy with meaning I did not fully understand but could feel. Noah leaned into me, his small body warm against my side, completely at ease in a situation that should have terrified him. Is the doctor nice? He asked, looking up at the man like he expected a promise. The man's expression softened again, just slightly. Yes, he said. They will take care of your mother. It was not reassurance. It was certainty. I felt it in the way he said it, like it had already been decided somewhere beyond this room. Minutes passed, quiet but charged. He did not pace, did not fidget. He stood near the window, looking out into the dark street below, one hand resting loosely at his side. Still, controlled, waiting. I wondered how many times he had stood like that before, in places very different from this one, making decisions that changed things without ever raising his voice. Why are you doing this? I asked again, softer now, the question pulling at something deeper inside me. He did not turn right away. For a moment, I thought he might ignore it. Then he spoke, his voice quieter than before. Because he asked. His eyes shifted slightly toward Noah. And I listen when it matters. The simplicity of the answer unsettled me more than anything else he had said. It was too direct, too clean. People did not work like that. Not in my world. Not without expecting something in return. What do you want? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. That made him turn. Fully this time. His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something deeper there. Not cold. Not distant. Something else. Something I could not name. Nothing, he said. The word hung between us, impossible to believe and yet impossible to challenge. Because he said it like it was the truth. A distant sound broke the silence. Tires against pavement. A car pulling up outside. My breath caught. He did not react right away. Just listened. Then he gave a small nod, like everything was unfolding exactly as it should. They are here, he said. And something inside me shifted again. Not fear this time. Not entirely. Something closer to surrender. Because I realized, sitting there in that small apartment with my son beside me and a stranger who felt anything but ordinary standing in front of me, that whatever was about to happen next was no longer something I could stop. The sound of the car door closing echoed louder than it should have, sharp against the quiet street, like it carried weight beyond its simple motion. I felt Noah's fingers tighten slightly against my sleeve, not out of fear, just awareness. Something was happening. Something bigger than either of us. The man moved before I could say anything. His steps measured as he crossed the room toward the door, not rushed, not hesitant. Certain. Always certain. He opened it before the knock even came. Like he already knew the exact second they would reach the threshold. Two people stood outside. A woman in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, her posture straight, her expression calm but alert. Professional. Beside her, a younger man carrying a compact medical case, his eyes scanning quickly, efficiently. They both looked out of place here, just like him. Too composed. Too prepared. Inside, he said quietly, stepping aside to let them pass. They did not question him. Not even for a second. The woman entered first, her gaze finding me immediately, assessing in a way that felt thorough but not invasive. Emily, she asked, her tone steady, warm in a controlled way. I nodded my throat. Too tight to respond properly. I am Dr. Harris, she said, already moving closer. We are going to take a look at you. No hesitation. No small talk. Just action. The younger man set the case down on the coffee table, opening it with practiced ease, revealing equipment that looked far too advanced for a place like this. Clean. Organized. Ready. I felt suddenly exposed, sitting there in my worn clothes, in a space that had never been meant to hold something this precise. I told you we cannot afford this, I said quietly, my eyes flicking toward the man who had brought them here. He did not respond. He did not need to. The doctor glanced briefly in his direction, then back to me. That has already been handled, she said gently. Handled. Another word that felt final. My chest tightened again, but there was no space left to argue. Not when she was already checking my pulse, her fingers light but confident, her attention fully focused. How long have you been feeling like this? She asked. A few weeks, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Saying it out loud made it feel more real, more serious. She nodded slightly, like she had expected that answer. Any dizziness? Shortness of breath? Yes. Each answer felt smaller than the truth. The younger man handed her a small device. She used it without breaking rhythm, her movements smooth, efficient. This was routine for her. Not for me. Never for me. Noah watched everything from beside me, unusually quiet now, his small hand still wrapped around my arm. Is she going to be okay? He asked softly. The question hung in the air, fragile and heavy all at once. The doctor paused for just a second, her eyes softening as she looked at him. We are going to help her, she said carefully. Not a promise, but not uncertainty either. Something in between. I looked past her, my gaze landing on him again. He had not moved far. Still near the door, still watching, his presence steady and unshaken by everything unfolding in front of him. Like this was exactly where he was supposed to be. Like this was always going to happen. And for the first time since all of this started, I realized something that made my breath catch in a different way. He was not just helping. He was making sure nothing went wrong. The room felt smaller as the examination continued, not because of the people in it, but because of the weight of every word being said. Dr. Harris moved with quiet precision, checking readings, asking questions, piecing things together in a way that made me feel like I was no longer in control of my own body. Numbers appeared on her device, small glowing indicators that seemed to mean more to her than they did to me, but I could read her expression well enough. Focused, careful, not alarmed, but not relaxed either. "Emily," she said after a moment, her tone shifting slightly, more deliberate now. "How long have you been ignoring this?" The question landed harder than I expected. I looked down, my fingers tightening slightly around Noah's hand. "I have been busy," I said quietly. It sounded weak the second it left my mouth. She did not challenge me. She did not need to. Her silence said enough. "You are severely dehydrated," she continued, her voice calm but firm. "Your blood pressure is unstable, and your body is under more stress than it can manage on its own." Stress. Such a simple word for something that felt like it had been slowly pulling me apart for months. "Is it serious?" I asked, even though part of me already knew the answer. She paused, just briefly, choosing her words with care. "It is serious if it continues," she said. "But it is treatable." Treatable. The word echoed in my mind. Fragile, but real. Not hopeless. Not final. Something shifted inside me again. Something that felt dangerously close to relief. Noah squeezed my arm. "See," he whispered, like he had already decided everything was going to be okay. I swallowed, blinking back the sudden sting in my eyes. I had not realized how much I needed to hear that. The younger man handed Dr. Harris a small kit, and she began preparing in 4-line with practiced ease. My instinct was to pull back, to resist, to hold on to the little control I still felt I had. But I did not. I stayed still. Because for the first time in a long time, someone else seemed to know what to do. "This will help stabilize you," she said gently, her movements careful, respectful. I nodded, unable to find the energy to argue anymore. Across the room, he had not moved. Still near the doorway, still watching everything unfold with that same quiet intensity. But now I noticed something different. His focus was not on the doctor, not on the equipment. It was on me. Every time I shifted, every time I took a breath that was too shallow or too slow. He noticed, like he was tracking something invisible to everyone else. "You should have come sooner," Dr. Harris added softly, adjusting the line. "People push themselves too far, thinking they have no choice." I let out a small breath, something between a laugh and a sigh. "I did not have a choice," I said. She glanced at me briefly, then toward Noah, then back again. "There is always a choice," she said. "Sometimes it just does not look like one at first." My eyes drifted again, finding him without meaning to. He had not spoken, not since they arrived, but his presence filled the room in a way that words did not need to. And suddenly, something became clear in a way it had not before. This was the choice I did not know I had. Not because I asked for it, not because I planned it, but because a 4-year-old boy believed someone out there would listen. And he did. The realization settled deep, quiet, but undeniable. Everything that was happening right now existed because of that one small act. And because of him. The fluid from the form moved slowly, drop by drop, steady and controlled, like it was teaching my body how to find its rhythm again. I could feel it almost immediately, not dramatic, not sudden, but enough to take the sharp edge off the dizziness that had been sitting behind my eyes all day. My breathing eased, just slightly. My shoulders lowered without me realizing it. It felt unfamiliar. Safe, in a way I had not felt in a long time. Noah noticed it before I did. "You look better," he said quietly, leaning his head against my arm again. I let out a small breath, something softer this time. "I feel a little better," I admitted. It was the truth. A small one, but still real. Dr. Harris adjusted the line one last time, then stepped back, her expression more settled now. "You need rest," she said. "Real rest. Not a few hours between. Responsibilities. Your body is not asking anymore. It is forcing you to listen." I nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling deeper than I expected. She was right. I had been ignoring it, pushing through it, pretending I could hold everything together just a little longer. But something inside me had already started to give. And if tonight had gone differently, I did not let myself finish that thought. The younger man began packing up the equipment with quiet efficiency, Each item returning to its place like this had all been routine. Maybe for them, it was. For me, it felt like everything had shifted. "We will arrange a follow-up," Dr. Harris added, her tone firm but reassuring. "You will not go through this alone." The words lingered, unexpected and unfamiliar. Not alone. I glanced toward him again, almost instinctively now. He had not changed position much, still standing near the edge of the room, still watching, but something about him felt quieter, not less powerful, just less distant. Like the space between us had narrowed in a way I did not fully understand. "Thank you," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. I was not sure who I was saying it to. The doctor, the man, maybe both. Dr. Harris gave a small nod, acknowledging it without making it bigger than it needed to be. But he held my gaze for a second longer. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between us. Not obligation, not debt, something else, something steadier. The doctor and her assistant moved toward the door, their presence already beginning to fade from the room, like a precise intervention that had come exactly when it was needed and no sooner. He stepped aside to let them pass, his movements smooth, controlled, always aware of everything around him. The door closed softly behind them. Silence followed. Not heavy this time. Not suffocating. Just quiet. Noah yawned, the kind that takes over his whole face, his small body finally relaxing after everything he had witnessed without fully understanding. I brushed my fingers through his hair gently, grounding myself in something simple, something real. Then I looked up at him again. "You did not have to do this," I said quietly. It was not resistance anymore, just truth. He studied me for a moment, his expression unreadable but not cold. "Yes," he said. "I did." The answer was immediate, certain, like there had never been another option. My chest tightened, but not from fear this time. Something deeper, something that felt like the beginning of understanding. "Why?" I asked again, softer now, because I needed to hear it one more time. He stepped closer, just enough that his presence felt clearer, more defined, without crossing into something that would make me pull away. "Because he trusted me," he said, his gaze shifting briefly to Noah. "And I do not ignore that." I followed his eyes, looking down at my son, who was already drifting towards sleep, completely at peace with everything that had just happened. A small, simple act. A picture. A message. And somehow, it had reached someone powerful enough to change everything. I looked back at him, my voice quieter than before, but steadier. "What happens now?" For the first time since he arrived, there was the faintest hint of something in his expression. Not a smile. Not quite. Just something softer. "Now," he said, "you get better." The words settled around me, simple and absolute. And as I sat there, feeling the steady rhythm returning to my body, my son safe beside me, and a man I did not understand standing in my home like he had always been part of the story, I realized something I could not ignore anymore. That night was not the end of anything. It was the beginning.